My name is Deborah Joy Corey, and I'm a writer and an editor that living in Maine.
My name is Deborah Spark, and I am the co-editor of Breaking Bread.
And it came about as an idea to raise awareness for hunger in Maine.
She runs a hunger nonprofit out of her apartment. It's called Blue Angel. Everyone who wrote for the anthology, they donated their essays. And of course, Deborah and I did it for free. And then even the press donated the proceeds or the profits from the book to Blue Angels. So the whole thing is sort of a literary fundraiser.
It was the easiest topic imaginable for an anthology, truly.
And people had fun with it, don't you think, Deborah?
People surprised themselves when they wrote these essays. A lot of the writers have said, well, I didn't know I'd end up writing this. I didn't know, or I don't know where this came from. So there was that element of surprise. And food is sort of, it's almost like in many of the essays, it's as if it was a jumping off point or a prompt for a much larger story.
We all eat, right? I think it's because we all eat. I mean, everyone has to have some thought about food. You can't get away from it.
And the essays are very emotional. And so I think that was whatever really sort of lit them up regarding food, and in some cases, not everyone loves food. So in some cases it was not positive, but rather negative. So I think we have a really incredible collection in terms of the variation. And honestly, I learned so much from it because I think I just always thought everyone thinks the same way about food. And it's not true.
Even though, as Deborah said, some of these essays are dark or have to do with mourning, like Gibson's, essay, a sort of final food. We do associate food with celebration too, so that, a lot of the essays are about favorite foods or sort of fun times with food. And I think, so many things, I think, especially after COVID, so many things aren't fun, or haven't felt fun lately, but food still can be, even in, trying times.
I don't even know if we've really thought about that too much. I
We
mean, with the diversity, we thought about it in terms of writers, but for me, it almost seemed like people just took off and with the writing, and their stories were just the kind of like your fingerprint, right? It's just everyone has such an original food story.
I think what was interesting is naturally there was an overlap. Like even the few that were about death, right, and food, there wasn't really an overlap in how they were both different foods, but there wasn't even overlap in how they were treating it.
Deborah was actually very good about that because I saw the book kind of just one essay after another. I didn't really see, probably because it's so overwhelming to think about, I didn't really see grouping it in different groups.
I think you had the interior sense of how to line them up. Like I kept on wanting them to break in groups just so there was a way to sort of look at them.
And I thought, that's not going to work. But it did. And I think it's kind of amazing, that these sort of love and loss and family and community and all of that, that there was actually, when she made these suggestions and we took a look, it was really easy to identify the essays.
I think you had the sort of the more interior sense of like what you just said, how one would lead to another, which one's best to place next to each other.
And we sort of did a lineup. So they were each essay trying to feed into another.
That's, I think, one of the times when, maybe you end up with a productive disagreement, because you had one sense and that worked for how within sections they were ordered, which I would have no idea how to do. And then I had this sense of doing it in sections.
We were complimenting one another on that process, I think. It's really worked out well. Blue Angel is such a tiny, tiny nonprofit. It really is. It's just it's a community nonprofit. Um, and I think that to me, this is such an honor because it is such a small nonprofit that we have all these wonderful writers saying, great, we'll help, we'll do something for it. And I think there's going to be a lot more food writing and food speaking. I know I've been invited, I'm sure you have too, Deborah, just around food now. It has started a conversation. That was the agenda, right? To really just start a conversation about hunger in Maine.
I spent some years as an ice cream scooper, and so I'm retired from that gig.
I did too. I did too.
Really?
I worked at the Super Scoop when I was a teenager, and I loved it. It was a great job.